Copy, one. We're in contact, 2.
You coming to you or you coming to us?
Stand by. We'll let you know when we're inbound.
First question I've got for all three of you. When you first signed on for this movie, what would you say was your biggest burning question for Ray and Alex in terms of what it would take to actually pull all of this off?
I didn't really have a burning question. I think it was, after they met with us individually and just there was kind of like a vetting process and, it was, are you in or are you out? And it wasn't a kind of project or film to be a part of where you have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It required a certain commitment and responsibility and accountability that, brought us all together. So we knew on day one, everyone that showed up, that what we were committing to. And we had complete trust in Ray and Alex to guide that ship.
To build on that a little, you are all wildly unique actors on your own, but given what you just said, do you find that you all have a specific shared quality, something that kind of signaled to you, like, we'd all be able to go there for this project?
That's interesting. I think one of the things that, like, everyone kind of had to sort of embody, kind of to the point that Charles made, is like the idea that we're like teammates before we are individuals, and like the individualism kind of was left at the door along with our egos, and everyone practiced a kind of collectivity and a team spirit that was key to representing this group of people that we were representing, and also just kind of honing in on the one sort of important guiding principle, which was to like, tell this as literally as possible without dramatization or any fictional elements, and just kind of execute the objective.
Speaking of that, you went into some pretty intense training in order to make all that happen. I just want to get the phrasing right here. The training you all did was based on a program designed to prepare SEALs to perform under intense levels of stress and fatigue. And, Will, this is a quote I pulled from you from our press notes. You had mentioned that part of that program is about finding where your personal wall is. So I was wondering for each of you, where did your personal wall land and how did you wind up breaking through it?
Oh, it's a
Great question.
It's a great question. It's sort of different for everybody, right? I think some people's walls were defined by like physical limitations, some mental, some kind of like technical. What was really cool is there was a culture of leadership. So even though there was a hierarchy and a chain of command, everyone was encouraged to, lead on certain things. There are things that like DeFaro, even though like, I hope you don't mind me saying, like, the younger guy, there were things that he was far more knowledgeable on and, could lead on and would educate all of us on. There were things that Charles was able to do that others weren't, and he would naturally lead in that. I'm thinking about how Evan and Taylor were especially proficient with weapons training and things. So, there was a kind of a culture in sort of empowering everybody to lead on their respective areas of expertise, and then we kind of broke those walls down together.
Right, and especially too as well, I don't think any of us really focused on what our weaknesses were, but what our strengths were, and we applied those strengths to help our team, like he just said. Whether if Will can help me with XYZ and he can help me with XYZ, I didn't mind, like they didn't care that I didn't know that, you know what I mean, or I was behind or anything like that. Or when we were working out, if somebody, when we would do, our what we call Navy SEALs, push-ups, this exercise we did, we finished it when everybody finished it. We didn't just wait, you know what I mean? We didn't leave anybody behind.
Right. And we really kept each other lifted throughout every process. Like, whether there's weaknesses or not, we focus on the strengths, and, none of that really that kind of immense support that you have with each other is great. Will had many weaknesses, but I definitely,
weaknesses. A big person.
Don't believe it.
Absolutely not true.
So one of my absolute favorite things to do when I have a great ensemble to talk to is force actors to give each other flowers. So for each of you, can you recall a time on this set when a co-star did something in a scene that just so far exceeded your expectations and, I don't know, maybe made you stop and think like, wow, that's amazing, I'm so proud of you?
I gotta say, Michael Gandolfini's moment with the with the morphine was unbelievable. Like seeing how kind of incredibly well he sort of did that, and was often blown away by his performance. Also Taylor, is the most uncomplaining dude, and inadvertently injured himself and sort of quite literally broke down a wall.
I mean, everybody really, I don't want to say had their own moments because we all gave our 110% dedication to it. But honestly, if I were to answer that question, it sounds simple, to be screaming your head off for a very long time, but it's really not. And it definitely takes a toll on your mental health and your health in general. So, Cosmo Jarvis and Joseph Quinn, they really were, I believed it. I believed it.
It just fed into the reality of what was happening on that set, which pales into comparison of what happened on the actual day. But, it required a lot, as far as just the process and just, it feeds just kind of the feeling of what was happening in that moment. Everybody.
Turning it towards yourselves now, there's one thing that I keep thinking about. So you do all this training and all this prep and rehearsal, and you kind of go into the most immersive filming experience possible, but you're also actors still doing a job who essentially have to hit these points of this dance that you've all set out. Is there any particular part of that dance that you are most nervous about? The one that maybe pose the greatest risk of like getting yourselves too in your heads and taking you out of that immersive environment?
The whole process really, I think we were pretty locked in. We knew why we were there, and we knew it was going to require every fiber of our being to show up and tell this story. And it's a really good question that you asked. I'm not sure if I just answered it right there, but that's the interesting thing is like, we watch every individual character process trauma and fear in their own way. But at the end of the day, they were falling on a protocol. And as actors, we had to fall into protocol because there was some of these scenes were like 5, 10, 15, 20-minute long takes over and over and over and over again for everyone. So you really couldn't be in your head, but if you did, that was the reality in that moment, so it all worked because it's very human, authentic experience.
And as well too, I mean, personally, with the scene where Ray finds Elliot laying in the street, that was in the script. That's the only scene that's described as like very emotional in the sense of Ray was, in the script it says he was crying. So that was a lot of pressure because it was alien compared to the rest of the script, having this very emotional scene. So if you were to answer your question, that was probably one of the most pressure out of all of it, which is a lot. It's something to say. It was the pressure throughout the whole thing, but that scene specifically was on my mind from the beginning to the end. Yeah.
So this process feels very one of a kind to this film, but there's also certain elements of it that I think any set out there would benefit from. So is there any particular part of making Warfare that you wish more sets would embrace?
Will Poulter and the attitude everyone had on this set.
I think someone like Ray Mendoza, somebody who has a lived experience, is very important to it. And also take it even further, what Ray did for us, which is the 3-week training boot camp. I feel like if you are going to do a war film like that, you have to have a training boot camp to establish the brotherhood, to establish the just basic knowledge that we had.
Time with the cast, and honestly, like. Sorry, I didn't realize we had time. Time spent with.
I didn't say anything.
Sorry, time spent with each other is so amazing. Like in terms of representing authentic relationships and interpersonal dynamics, like you can't do it authentically without spending actual time with each other. And we spent every waking moment with one another, like on and off set.
You see the results of that on screen big time. Again, congratulations. I've never seen anything quite like this, and it's something else.
Thank you so much.